So here I am. My name is Eric Johnson, a veterinarian in Marietta. I have some experience with fish, tropical, saltwater, Siamese fighting fish, goldfish, you name it. I've probably killed it, kept it as a pet. I have koi and goldfish now. I used to do a lot of saltwater fish, but they are a giant pain in the ass to do water changes on and meet their individual feeding requirements and keep them from killing each other. And it really, for me, it was the water changes that they require, because you have to make their water and then use it for the water changes and all that. It's a pain in the neck. Freshwater, you still have to do water changes, but getting water for them is not that big of a deal, and you can do a constant water replacement or trickle feed that makes freshwater fish real easy. So my interest in the hobby has morphed more towards the freshwater. That was boring. So this video is basically to talk to you briefly about, or not so briefly, about keeping your first fish tank alive. This is a video that's dedicated to the fireman, the librarian, the pilot, the average person who doesn't have a background in pets or animals, whose 7-year-old says, I want a fish tank, and you want to make them happy, and you're thinking it's going to be easier than a dog, which it should be. A lot easier, and it is actually, if you just follow some of the basic things, which I'll recap. You'll probably have a pretty easy time of it. Starting out, what kind of fish do you want to keep? Siamese fighting fish are probably the easiest thing you could get. If you didn't hear anything I said about Siamese fighting fish, please hear this. The number one reason Siamese fighting fish die so quickly for most people is they're overfed. If you fed your Siamese fighting fish one kernel of food every other day, you probably would be a marvel at keeping Siamese fighting fish alive. Past that, there's a lot of ways to keep them. Showing off, you can grow them really big, you can make them breed, you can keep them in show quality color and all this other stuff by keeping them warmer, and a little water movement, live plants, aeration, bright light, the whole thing. But just putting a fish in a half-gallon fish bowl with a little water bubbler and a floating plant, some pelleted food in a window maybe, all very effective. That's a Siamese fighting fish. Goldfish, a little different. Tropical fish, even a little more different. But let's just talk about goldfish or tropical fish and the way you would set up their system, and then how you would run it to ensure your success. Goldfish or tropical fish, kind of the same. First, get a container. Let's go up to a 10-gallon. You can also go to Michael's and get some really neat glassware, square glass containers, tall, short, fat, round. Sometimes hard to see into. I went to Goodwill one time and I found a 10-gallon, perfectly round, spherical fish bowl, which I really like. Still have it. Hard to find that. 10-gallon fish tanks, nice. 5-gallon fish tanks, now they have nano cubes. So find something that kind of suits your space. 10 gallons or less, pretty easy to care for. Find a place for it, make sure it's level and free of swinging doors and cabinets and kids running by and knocking it over. Next thing to do is find gravel to put into it. Gravel is the easiest thing to maintain. You can put live plants in gravel. You can also hold down fake plants, which have a lot to recommend them. I don't know if you knew this or not, but you can get plastic and silk plants from Michael's that are lovely, look very realistic, and they're safe for the tropical fish. The Mardell and Plant Pen Plaques and all the other fish store plastic plants are nice. They're perfectly okay, but some of the silk plants from Michael's are really quite nice. and I'm used to a lot of those. The bases of some of those plants will rust, and that's okay, because in fish tanks, when the stems of some of those silk plants rust, it is a ferrous iron that's produced. It's not a hazardous iron, so don't worry about that little bit of rust. So back to the substrate. Gravel is a good one. Sand is okay if it's not too deep. Let's just talk about gravel for a minute. Let's back up from even gravel and talk about one of the first crucial things about your first tank. This is the one that everybody blows. It's the fact that there are good germs and bad germs in fish tanks. Good germs actually break down fish wastes, and I'm not going to go too deeply into it, but there are good germs, and you need them. And you can grow them over the course of a couple weeks, or you can get them. And the place to get these good germs for your gravel is from other gravel. So it's not been uncommon for me to go to a pet store and on setting up a 2-gallon fish bowl or something like that, just asking, hey, I need gravel for my fish bowl. Can I have a pound or two of the gravel from that fish tank right there? It's a fish tank that's already set up and has fish waste in the gravel, and the dirtier the better, honestly. And they're like, what? You're not saving money getting used gravel. And I go, dude, I'm not trying to save money. I want the good germs that are in that. And so PetSmart won't let you do that, but a lot of the better mom and pop pet stores will, so that's worth it. You can also, if you have a friend with a fish tank, you can get gravel from their fish tank, or you can go into an established filtration system. Maybe you already have one at your house, or a buddy has one. You can take out their sponge material, or you can just take their filter and kind of stir it up and pour off that brown material that you can stir up in their filter. Pour off that brown material, because that is a nectar of good germs for your brand new fish bowl or fish tank. And so you would put either germy gravel or put just plain gravel in your fish bowl or a 10-gallon aquarium, and then put water in it. The water should be about room temperature, can come straight out of the tap. And then when you fill the tank with the water, then you would put a dechlorinator. It's a little bottle of stuff. It's Dechlor or Chlor No More, or Get Out You Chlorine, or some other stuff. It's a chemical dechlorinator, and it neutralizes chlorine. And I like, there's one from Seachem. It's like a neutral buffer, and it happens to have dechlorinator in it. I like that one. But API makes one that's good too. There's several out there. So you fill the tank with water. After adding your gravel, you fill the tank with water, put some dechlorinator in there, and at that point, once the tank is up and full of gravel at room temperature and dechlorinated, then you can put your beneficial germs in there. It'll make the tank all hopefully cloudy and brown, which is great. Next, if you want, you can decorate the tank with your silk plants from Michael's, or even better, live plants. Live plants in a new system like that would be excellent ones. Would be there's a plant called Anacris, banana plant, Bacopa, floating version of wisteria is my favorite. Floating wisteria. There are others I will think of as I go along. Azola is good. Fairy moss is good. Aponogeton bulbs are good. Madagascar lace are good. Amazon swords, Vallisneria. You might have to rewind and play this through another time with a pencil. Just jot some of those down. If you do live plants, you need to run a lot of light. I start out with something like 16 to 18 hours of light on the tank to keep those plants going. It also helps to put a little bit of fluorite in your gravel. This is so far beyond your beginner tank, but makes you a success as a beginner plant person. A little bit of fluorite and a lot of bright light, you keep plants no problem. Maybe a little bit of iron from your rusting Michael's silk plant stems. Anyway, there's a tie-in there. So you have this, say, 10-gallon tank or a 2-gallon fish bowl. You got gravel in it. You put your germs in it that you got from somebody else's filter, and you've got maybe some plants in there preparatory to maybe getting a fish. Here's the next one. Remember, the first one, recap, is the good germs from somebody else's tank or filter, or even from the gravel from a pet store. The second one, air bubbler. It's a little air pump. It's a plastic box with a little thing on it, and you plug a tube on it, put a little air stone on that tube. If you went to the pet store and you said, I need an air pump and an air stone, they would know exactly what you're talking about. Plug it into the wall, drop the air stone into the tank. You want, for a fish bowl, you want the smallest little air pump, the littlest, tiniest. They make them for that. They're just little air pumps. And drop that air stone in there for just a little air bubble. For a 10-gallon tank, you could use something of some fair size. All what you're looking for basically is turning the water at the bottom of the tank over to the top of the tank and creating a very, very gentle well of the water. You don't want to have the fish struggling to stay still when they're trying to sleep. You just want the water to just gently be rolling and moving. It's important because that's how oxygen exchange occurs, and the fish will have a tendency to suffocate. It kind of takes away from the whole, fish keeping experience. You put the goldfish tank together and you put the goldfish in there, and like the next day your kid comes running to you. It's like, hey, Daddy, the fish isn't moving very much, and it's like, well, he must have suffocated. So let's not do that. Air pump, air stone, sized appropriately for your 2-gallon or your 10-gallon or whatever. This would be especially true if you went to Michael's and you got one of those really tall, thin glass containers. You definitely need an air stone in the bottom of one of those, but not rolling the water with a lot of ferocity. Okay, so you've got your gravel in the thing with the water dechlorinated, beneficial germs that you added, silk plants, maybe live plants, lots of light, and then an air stone bubbling away. And then here's the third thing. Run that for 12 to 24 hours. There's 2 miracles on that. First, if you put fish in there at the same time you fill it with water, even if you dechlorinate it, the fish are going to have trouble. And they're probably not going to come through that without considerable stress, either in the form of dying, or that stress is going to set them up for diseases later. So there's that. The tank can run for 12 to 24 hours. Is going to give you better results too, because the water will clarify. The second aspect of giving it 24 hours is if you've added good germs, if you've added sufficient good germs, running that air pump is going to clarify that water. It will literally clear, gin clear, in 24 hours, because those beneficial germs are going to settle in and they're going to agglutinate all the suspended solids. It is amazing how that works. Try it. It's the fancy word for it is bioseeding. It's basically taking the beneficial bacteria and other organic organisms from gravel or filtration in another established system, putting it into the recipient system, and then that provides you with a balanced ecosystem in the new or recipient system. But please do those 3 things. Use live gravel or beneficial bacteria from a donor system. Aerate, use an air stone, and let it run for 24 hours before you put any fish in there. Then, the right fish. We'll talk about filtration in just a minute. The right fish. If you want goldfish, get the smallest you can get within reason. Everybody wants the big one. The big one are going to have high demands as far as the water quality, the filtration, their size. They're going to poop a lot. They're going to eat more. They're going to push the system. Generally speaking, unless you're talking about newborn goldfish, you're going to want the small ones. An inch and a half, something like that. The smaller they are, they're weaker at that size, okay, but they are also easier on the system when you load them in. And I would put too few. I would put like 2 of them in a 2-gallon fish bowl to start, and then I would put maybe 5 in a 10-gallon tank. The ultimate loading is going to be an inch of fish and 10 gallons of water, and that's if you're running an air stone. Did I say an inch of fish in a gallon? Yeah, that would be what I would do for a tropical fish tank or a goldfish tank. So that would be stocking goldfish. In a tropical fish tank, I could run over a list of fish in a 10-gallon tropical tank that might be nice together. That would be 1 or 2 Corydoras catfish on the bottom. Don't buy all these fish at the same time, because you're going to hit the system with too much organics, poop, fish urine, bio-loading. You have to feed them the next day. It's just too much to put in the system. The beneficial germs aren't going to keep up with it. But ultimately, here's a good group of community fish that'll probably get along pretty good from bottom to top. That would be Corydoras catfish, maybe a Otocinclus catfish, 1 very small Plecostomus, a couple of gold barbs, 2 or 3 platies, a couple of Serpae tetras, 1 very small angelfish, 2 zebra danios, a couple white cloud minnows. Don't get a giant danio, for Christ's sake. You don't want an Oscar. Stay away from cichlids right now. Nothing like that in a beginner tank. If somebody said cichlid, just not right now. They're pretty aggressive. Later, oh, they're so fun. Hatchet fish are kind of particular, and they're hard to get anymore. They just don't carry them in the bulk stores. But those would probably be some of the good beginner fish. Would be like Serpae tetras, little angelfish, Otocinclus, white cloud mountain minnows, hard to kill those. Zebra danios, they're really hardy. Some platies. Let's double back around then and talk a little bit about filtration. And all I would say to that, for a beginner, is sponge filter. Yeah, sponge filter. If you don't want to use that as a beginner in a fish bowl or in a 10-gallon fish tank, I would probably go with a sponge filter or a sponge filter. You could always double back and use the old standard sponge filter. Those filters they hook on the back of the tank, seriously, with the little plastic box and the little motor on it and all that other stuff, come on. They're fine. Knock yourself out. But a good sponge filter, they have some Lustars. They're called Lustars. There's Hydro-4s. There's couple, I've seen them on Amazon. They basically look like a cylinder of black foam, and you pump air down into them. That's what they look like. Hydrostar's one. You pump air into those. I have a 65-gallon tank at the house. I'm using 2 of the Hydrosponge sponge filters. That's it. That's the whole filtration system, is 2 of the very largest Hydrosponge sponge filters. They're easy to clean. They don't have any moving parts. There's no impellers to break. They don't have cartridges you have to pay to replace. They last for years and years. Sponge filters. If you're doing a little 2-gallon fish bowl, you can get, they have these little jungle corner filters. They even make a little tiny one that's got a circular sponge on it. It's the end of the day. I don't talk right. Maybe I can dig up a picture of one, or you can just look on Amazon, sponge filter. They don't really have a lot of those at PetSmart. In fact, I'm not sure they have any at PetSmart, because the cartridge filter is so popular these days. It's just a lot of moving parts, a lot of tubes, a lot of priming, a lot of cartridges to buy and slide into place and everything. Sponge filters, they seed really quickly. If you can get some germs from another sponge filter, they seed very quickly, and they work well with water clarifiers. So when it comes down to filtration, I'm going to say sponge filters. What a great idea. So I think for you guys that are just trying to set your kid up with a fish tank that's successful, I'm gonna suggest either a 10-gallon with that initial population of community fish that get along real good, with dechlorinated bubbled water, with some happy germs in some gravel, with some Michael's artificial plants under some pretty bright light, with a sponge filter, or a 2-gallon fish bowl with a couple of really small goldfish with some gravel in it. What do you feed your fish? Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. I feed my goldfish, especially the little tiny goldfish, I feed them tropical fish flakes, usually color flakes from Tetra. And the reason I do that is because goldfish food has a tendency to be a little bit low in calorie, and it doesn't really do anything for color, whereas the tropical flake food is very well accepted by goldfish, and it has a tendency to do good things for color, and it's pretty high in energy. It's a high in protein. The goldfish can handle that. It's not a problem. And Tetra especially makes a good flake food that doesn't cloud the water if you happen to overfeed a little bit. Overfeeding is the death knell for most of your systems. I'm trying to see this street light. Is what I'm doing. Not my neck isn't all overly limber. So Tetra flake food, tropical fish food for color is good. That's what I would feed my tropical fish as well, especially when you first get them, because the fish are usually stressed. They have a tendency not to pick off their food really aggressively. So tubifex worms, not so much. Pelleted foods, at least at first, not so much. Tetra flake color food is probably your best first bet. If your fish are really small, or if you're feeding Siamese fighting fish, you just take the flake and you just kind of like crumble it up. And then just watch out for overfeeding. I would rather you underfeed once a day than overfeed twice a day. Once the system is up and running and you got your little air stone going and the water's clarified and nice and clear and got a little algae growing and your plant's strong and all that stuff, you might be able to bump up your feeding a little bit. But don't overcrowd the system. Let's do an inch of fish in a gallon of water, and I think I probably have worn out the subject. So there's the thing. There's your primer. And to recap, it's dechlorinated water with beneficial germs donated by an established system into your recipient system with an air stone. Consider silk plants from Michael's. Feed Tetra flake food, color variety. Sponge filtration, and then down the road, some water changes, 10% per week, something like that. Nothing catastrophic, just a little bit each week would be of great help. And then maybe a pinch of neutral regulator on a once a week basis would help as well. There's a lot more to be said about keeping tropical fish and goldfish right up front, but this is a great primer. I think I've covered just about everything I want to. I'm going to put this together in a video, your first tank or something like that. And I'm sorry that I'm not a more sexy spokesperson. Damn sexy, but not as sexy as some. But hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and it's a good use of my time driving, and I've been able to keep my concentration on the road and actually stay awake while I'm driving. Thanks for joining me.